everybody, and how are we all doing today? It is Sunday, the 2nd of June, 2024. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone is having a great weekend. I'll be honest, I've had better weekends. You may or may not have seen my reel, but if you haven't, I will get into it in just a moment. But I think tonight I need a bit of cheering up, and I'm hoping you guys are going to be able to do that for me. Now, before I get into it, let's see if we've got anybody on the chat. Over on Instagram, Seed to Table Plot 13 has joined. Over on YouTube, Adrian has joined, saying hello to Richard and all. Good evening to you. We've got Billy SBB saying hi, everyone. Good evening to you. Ballysilian Allotment Man is there saying hello, everyone. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream, good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. We've got Kate Spratt saying good evening, Veg Army. Good evening, Veg Army, on this fine sunny day. Good evening to you. Anna Jones saying good evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Digwell is saying hi, fruity people. Good evening to you, you fruit loop. Hargrave Gas, evening all. Struggling to bring myself in from. It carries on. Evening all, I'm struggling to bring myself in from outside as the weather is so gorgeous. I'm knackered, but I've got a lot to done. It is one of those weekends, isn't it? The weather has just been beautiful. Stuart Jackson is there saying evening, Richard and Veg Army. Good evening to you. Nathan is there. Evening all. Good evening to you. My dad is out there. Good evening to you. Scott, Seat to Table Plot 13. Good evening all. Good evening to you. And Rebecca, good evening, Richard. Listening while still gardening this evening. Such a lovely day, Rebecca. Fantastic. Now, we are going to be getting into fruit trees in just a moment. I want to find out what fruit trees you have, how you look after them, and things like that. But before we get into that, there is the big event that happened this weekend. I don't know if you have seen the reel that I put out, but I wasn't happy. I went down the allotment yesterday. I'll be honest. So I was down on the allotment Monday afternoon, being a bank holiday. I popped down there Wednesday, but haven't been there Thursday or Friday due to the weather. But I went down onto my allotment on Saturday morning. I was really it was quite early in the morning. I stopped off to get breakfast on the way down. I was having a really, really good morning. I had a cappuccino on the go. You know, one of those days where everything just feels like, nothing's going to get me down. Well, I went to my allotment and I walked up into my allotment, and then that first thing I noticed was there's a piece of glass, a glass pane was sat on its side. Now, I thought that was a bit unusual because it's normally stood up alongside my greenhouse, but I did think it could be wind that's blown it down or something like that. Didn't think anything of it until I turned around and saw my shed door wide open, and I thought, well, panic set in. I run to that shed door, had a look inside to see if anything was stolen. There wasn't. Well, that I could tell at that time. So I was a little bit relieved, but at the same time, I sort of thought there's something funny going on. So I walked up through my allotment, and that's when I realised on the top half of my allotment, I've got quite a few beds up there, but there were 5 beds made out of a particular type of wood. Nothing special, just 4 bits of wood cut to size and screwed together. Nothing difficult. 4 of those beds had the wood removed. I was not happy at all. Really was not happy. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't see what had happened, why somebody would steal all this wood. And I literally thought about giving up my allotment there and then. I was so annoyed about it. Really annoyed about it. So I gave myself 5 minutes. I took a walk around our allotment site, and there I saw the wood on somebody else's allotment down the other end. So I've got it back. And here's all I would say on that. Contacted the council. I've got to contact the police about it as well, and what have you. But it really has upset me. We are used, allotments are not the most secure sites. We are used to people breaking into sheds, stealing tools. We are used to stealing food, even the vegetable and the plants we grow. I'm not saying it's right at all, but we're kind of used to it. It's part of allotment life. But to actually steal the wood from my beds, it just to me felt like it was a step too far. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen about it, but I was really, really annoyed. Absolutely annoyed, as you can imagine. let's hope I can cheer myself up. Now, I'll just quickly run through the comments before we get into it. Susan Seri has joined over on Instagram. And what have we got here? Ian says, hi, Richard and all. Good evening to you. Tabby Stream says, first really warm day of the year, I think. Mostly in the garden, weed in the paths. It has been a warm one today, hasn't it? It's been lovely. Tabby Stream says, I was sorry to see your video. Thank you. Unbelievable what someone is willing to pitch. I totally agree. Andrew Norris, evening all. We planted a new orchard some 10 years ago. I prune it every year, feed it, and paint the trunks with lime. Still waiting for the trees to produce fruit. Well, that's something we will get into in just a second. I just wanted to get that off my chest. Digwell says, nightmare, Richard. It was a nightmare. In fact, this is how much it annoyed me. Obviously, that was yesterday morning. I had to go to a photography thing. So I left out at 11 o'clock yesterday morning. When I finished my photography thing, I went back there for another hour. And even when I was at home, I was stressing about it. I was sort of trying to get to sleep. I drift off and then it would pop in my mind and I'm awake again. It really did annoy me. And I've sort of said, I went down the allotment again this morning. I'm going to go down again once I've finished this show. It's that bad. Nigel has joined. Evening all. Good evening to you. I'm hopefully all ready for your challenge you set me, Nigel. Jenny says, hi, everyone. Hope you are well. Good evening to you. Tarot Stream says, one reason I don't want to spend a lot of money on my plot. I agree. We had an email from a committee about not removing things from other plots. That's what I'm going to get sent out. You know, it's just not on to remove anything from somebody else's plot, even if you think it's abandoned, because it may not be abandoned. That's awful, Richard. So sorry. What the hell is wrong with people? I agree. What is wrong with people? Digwell also says, I don't think a thief would have dropped the wood on another plot, on the path, etc. Yes. I'm not going to say anything again about that. I kind of agree with what you're saying, but I have no proof. So I'm keeping that comment to myself, if you know what I mean. Jenny says, I have to place wildlife cameras on my plot to catch unwanted visitors as well. That's what I'm going to be doing as well. I've got a wildlife camera here somewhere. I'm going to take that down and set it up somewhere secure, somewhere where nobody can remove it, though. Richard Golden has joined. Hello to you. Hello, mate. Hope you are well. And Tammy Stream says, I was annoyed when someone nicked some water from my water butt last year. Absolutely. There's just no need for it, is there? So I'm going to say this. Everybody who has an allotment, theft is a real issue. What you don't expect is one of your fellow allotmenteers to take stuff as well. That just pushes below the belt, I think. Chili Kate's joined. Hi, everyone. Sorry to hear about the theft, Richard. Thank you. It is very, very upsetting, but we will get on with it. And what I'm going to do now, I'm making a stencil up. Every single piece of wood is going to have my plot number sprayed onto it. So if it gets stolen, I can easily identify it. Right, let's get into fruit trees. Anyway, that is the main conversation for tonight. So my first question that I'm going to throw out there is, what fruit trees do you have? I've got quite a few fruit trees. Down on the allotment, I've got an apple tree, a pear tree, a cherry tree. I think that is about it. I did have a cider apple tree, but I think that tree is dead. And yeah, I think that is about all the trees I have down there at the moment. Here at home, we've got pear trees, apple trees, cherry trees, plum trees, greengage, pretty much every fruit tree you can imagine. We've got them of different sizes. They're mostly, no, all my fruit trees, I'm trying to think, my elder tree is the only one that's not in a pot, but all my fruit trees are in pots. So I've gone for the rootstock suitable for being in pots, so they keep small. And this is an important thing, I think, when it comes to fruit trees. If you don't have a lot of space, you've got to think about getting the right tree and the right rootstock for what you need. So what fruit trees do you have? Is there any interesting ones? I've got a lemon tree as well, and this is where the conversation started with after my visit to the citrus centre last week. Kate says, I've inherited some apple trees, no idea what kind yet, so nice surprise. I've also got my grafted apple from a workshop I did, which is doing well. Fantastic, fantastic. I'd love to see more about this grafted apple because I think I'd love to know how it was done in the workshop. Jenny says, what is really annoying, if someone was desperate for wood, water, etc., I'm sure a little ask on WhatsApp Facebook group and people are normally so generous. I agree. I totally agree. It's the same when people steal food from allotments saying they can't feed their family. If they'd asked, they would be given it, I'm sure, or donated it, I should say. Kate says, also got a cherry inherited at the new house. That's another one for Cherry. Seed to table plot. Scott, this is shocking behaviour. One of the plot holders on my site dug up their neighbour's peonies and replanted them on their own. Just no call for it, is there? Just no call for it at all. Nigel has a cherry tree, 2 apple trees, and a pear tree. Fantastic. Chili Kate says we have 3 apple trees, 2 pear trees in our small garden at home, and a new plum tree this year on the allotment. Fantastic. Jenny says we have a young pear tree at home, a fan-shaped apple, although damaged in the house move, so it's one-sided now. Half a fan, half a fan. A standard apple tree. There is an orchard on our allotment site we can all use. Talking of orchards, we actually have a community orchard just down the road there. We walk Roxy there from time to time. So yeah, it was a really, really good thing to really lucky to have that as well. It's Jenny says I would like to get a medlar tree for home. That's an unusual one. Medlar, tasty fruit though, but very unusual. Margaret, we have an amazing plum tree, Victoria, that is loaded every year. It's true, I've seen it. We do nothing with it, all except a light prune every year. We also have 2 espalier apple trees that need a lot of looking after and seem to be housing for bugs that lay eggs in the leaves. Excellent, excellent. Nathan says 2 apple trees, 1 pear, 1 fig. That's the point. I've got a fig tree as well. Forgot to mention that. Digwell, a small Elstar apple tree and a conference pear trained as a sort of fan. Need to keep them under 6 foot tall. We're 8 foot on our allotment, but yeah. Again, training is something I'm doing more of as well, into shapes and things. I messaged photos from a workshop on Facebook Messenger to you. It was really interesting to do. Was that recently? Have I seen them? I'll have to have a check. I'll have a check in a bit. Stuart says I had 3 apple trees, a cherry tree at home, 2 apples, and 1 pear tree at school. That's a lot of fruit. That's a lot of fruit, of course. Turbo Stream says no fruit trees, but there's a damson tree on the edge of my plot. It's on what was a path. Shame the fruit always has grubs in it. Yeah, that's a problem. I have a peach tree and a quince tree, but I don't think they are on dwarf stock, so I might have to remove them. But I do want to set up an orchard if I take on another plot. Totally with you. I'd love an orchard. Love an orchard. Highgrove Guest says, I have 3 apple trees, a multi-variety grafted pear tree, 2 cherries, an apricot, a peach, a plum, a golden gage, and a quince. Fantastic. I'll tell you what is coming across is you all grow a lot of fruit trees, which is really good to see and hear about. Anna Jones got James Grieve and Discovery apple trees. Excellent. I meant to post the photos from our visit to West Green Gardens a few weeks ago. There was an amazing spell of step over apple trees in part of the walled gardens. It was like that when I visited West Green Gardens. This is where I get a lot of inspiration from visiting these gardens. Have an olive tree, very slow going, but looking healthy. I don't like olives, but keep trying them in case I suddenly start liking them. I've got an olive tree as well. Only fruit bushes, raspberries, blackcurrant, currants, and gooseberries. And Turbo Stream, I made some jam from the first picking yesterday. Excellent, excellent. So, from what I gather, most of you do have a wide range of different fruit trees that you're all growing and being very productive from. Well, in some cases being productive, in other cases not so much. So my next question is, how many of you have got your apple trees in pots or dwarfing rootstock or are fully grown? Now, most of mine are on dwarfing rootstock. The ones on the allotment are in the ground. One of them is a small one, granted, my family apple tree. My pear tree, however, is, I don't know what rootstock it is, but it's getting a little bit large. I've got to prune it down at some point, actually, to bring it back within. All our trees on our site have to be under 8 foot tall. So we've got to bring it back down under that. Just a slight nip, but it's absolutely laden with little pear fruitlets. So it looks like we are going to be getting plenty of pears, which is great. Um, all my ones here at home are in pots, so they are on a very dwarfing rootstock for that very reason. So I can control the size, can look after them quite well. The reason I've got them in pots is, I don't know, right? It's just easier to look after or to move around should I need to. So yeah, most of mine are in pots, is what I would say to that. What was it? See, Scott says, what was the apple and pear tree cross called? I think someone mentioned a few weeks ago back, or was I dreaming it? I think I was talking about, I heard somebody, and I think I was talking about somebody grafting on a pear branch onto an apple tree. So you would have one tree producing apple and pears. But I'm not sure if that was me imagining things or what. I do remember the conversation. I'm hoping it was just a thing going on. Rebecca says, I have an apple tree that never fruits. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. Does it flower? Is my question to that. If it does it flower, would be my first question. Nigel says, I've just hung a pheromone trap in my golden delicious apple tree. Always get with cuddling moth. It's one of those problems that does happen. That's something we will get into in a moment. Digwell says, off topic, I can't wait for the show to finish. The smell of my slow cooker chili started at 10 a.m. keeps wafting by me. Secret ingredients, chocolate and molasses. Sounds like a very sweet chili. Oh, I've had my dinner, so I can't think about food again. Kate says, do you guys give any particular feed to the apple trees? Yes. So in the winter, I like to give mine a bit of a bone meal feed. And that's about it, really. A bit of bone meal or maybe a bit of bloodfish and bone. Again, it's a fruiting apple tree, so you want to try and give it a bit of potash. So if you've actually got some wood ash, you can sprinkle around the base of your apple trees. That actually helps them as well. It's all about trying to, like tomato feed, produce flowers to produce the fruit. But because these aren't a soft fruit, tomato feed doesn't quite cut it in the same way that a solid feed or slow release feed will. Nigel says, pots ideal for when/if you move house. Yes, that's kind of my thinking as well. We've got no plans to leave this house. I love this house to bits, but if we were able to find ourselves a house with a couple of acres, I think we would be moving. But who knows? Who knows? What have we got? Anna Jones says, mine are on an M26 root stock. They are both about 10 foot. Yeah, I mean, the rootstocks are what define the size, as I'm sure you're all aware. But trying to work out the size of it from the rootstock, you've got to go online. I couldn't remember every single rootstock and what size they do. So yeah. Rebecca says, yes, I think it does. So it does flower, Rebecca. So what that tells me everything I need to know. Apple trees need pollinating. And when it comes to pollinating for apple trees, you may, depends on the variety, but you may need another tree that is also at the right point to pollinate your apple tree. So what you might need to do, I don't know if you've got any other apple trees growing near you, but you might need to cut a branch off another apple tree. Do you know your variety of apple tree, Rebecca? And look that up and it will tell you what pollinating class it's in and what it needs to match with. And that will probably be why you're not getting any apples. Digwell says dark chocolate and blacked trap molasses are bitter. Fair enough. Fair enough. That sounds delicious. Hargrove Gas. Mine are most of mine are in pots other than 2 apples, the gauge and the quince. The plum will go into the ground next year, probably. So funny enough, one of the reasons like my peach tree grows in a pot. And I keep it in a pot because over winter, what I do with my peach tree is move it into the greenhouse. I leave it outside between mid-May and mid-November. But between mid-November and mid-May, I move it into the greenhouse. The reason being, what I found with that is that I don't get peach leaf curl, which is a fungal disease that particularly affects peach and stone fruits. So by moving it in a greenhouse, we've never suffered from peach leaf curl, and that's worked really, really well at stopping it. And that's the reason I grow it in a pot. If it's a big tree, it's harder to move in. What the Victorians used to do when they grew their peaches up against the wall is they would actually install little pieces of glass above them to keep the rain off the leaves and stop peach leaf curl. And it's worked so well just moving it in a greenhouse. Digwell says many sites sell trio trees, 3 fruits on 1 tree. Apple, pear, plum is a common one. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good way if you are short on space to try and get as much different fruits as possible. Graham Arnold says, evening all. Sorry, late tonight. You're welcome along nonetheless. Rebecca says, no, don't know variety and no and other apples nearby. There you go. That's the problem. It would be good to know what your apple variety is, but try and get another apple tree or even a branch of an apple tree in flower and get it near so the bees can do the pollination for you. And I think then you will get apples. Sorry. Nigel says M27, M9, M26, MM106 is the smallest rootstocks to largest. I think last time I looked, there's some in between that as well. There's some more rootstocks that have been added to the scale too. But yeah, there's so many out there. It's almost impossible to remember them all, I think. And the M numbers only apply to apple trees. For other trees, there's different numbers as well. Negro says, my apple trees and pear trees are on M9 rootstock, dwarfing. Jenny says, when the shops do cheap bare root apple trees again, I want to buy but 2 to grow over an arch for an allotment. They will make a beautiful permanent arch. Yeah, down at Westdean again, there's this wonderful pear tree arch. And it is fantastic, twisted into this arch. But those cheap bare rooted trees that they tend to sell, the supermarkets sell them around January time, supermarket, the range and things like that. I've bought them in the past. They were, I don't know, they were £5 for an apple tree or something like that. The trouble I had, the pear tree was meant to be an apple tree and it really isn't. So be careful with what it is. You may not necessarily get what you expect. Graham says, I've got 2 apple trees, Ugremont, Russet and Spartan, and a pear tree, all trained all wire to make an edible fence. Graham, can you send photos of that? Reason being is there's something I'm looking at doing. I want to get some espalier, or make some espalier trees here and on the allotment. And what I want is like 3 branches going out like that from the main stem, 1, 2, 3, going horizontally to make a fence, to make a walkway that just, I think, will make an edible, good-looking fence. So very interested in that, Graham, if possible. Jenny says beds will have a small fruit tree in each bed to provide shelter, shade, habitat, and structure. Fantastic. Jenny says, Graham, that's great. We're doing similar with Taybury as they just keep getting longer and longer, don't they? Just let's have a quick check over on Instagram, and Steve Parnham has joined over there. So yeah, most of us seem to be on dwarfing rootstocks. I don't think many of us have the huge apple trees, as much as I'm sure we would love them. So moving on from that, my camera's stopped again. I will keep talking here because I don't know why this keeps doing this. I've got to figure out what's going on. So yeah, right. So moving on from the rootstock, how do you care for your fruit trees? In particular, pruning. I tend to do all my pruning over the winter times when it's dormant, except for my stone fruits, cherries, peaches, plums, etc., etc. My apple trees, my pear trees, they're all pruned throughout throughout the winter, when basically they are leafless. I can see the branches much more better. I always start with the 3Ds, the dead, diseased, or damaged branches, get rid of those. And then I just think about the overall shape to try and allow plenty of room between the branches for airflow and things like that. So, and then feeding, as I said earlier, I feed them with bone meal once a year and sprinkle on some wood ash as well. Works quite well. And a good mulch, of course, compost or anything like that, anything you may have to hand. Chili Kate says Pixie rootstock. This is semi-dwarfing and the smallest available for plums. There we. I said they're different depending on what fruit you have. So yeah, Pixie, excellent, excellent. The Fisherman, I've got a Bramley and a Tavia and a Kids Orange M27 trees on my allotment. Have a decent crop most years. Fantastic, fantastic. Razor logo, is that what came up? I thought it was the oh, it would have been the yeah, I know what you're talking about. Ah, Kate said it did it again, didn't it? Kate says, would seaweed feed be any good? Seaweed feed is a good feed, but it's more for promoting good root growth than anything. So not necessarily unless you need some good strong roots. At the end of the day, something's better than nothing in many cases. But if you're trying to encourage flowers, which or fruiting, you really need potassium. But yeah, seaweed will help. Seaweed will help. You could probably add a tomato feed at this time of year, but I don't really hear of anybody ever using tomato feed on their apple or fruit trees. But yeah, anybody else got any thoughts on that? Now, as I said, pruning, feeding is the only real care I tend to do with my trees. Obviously, making sure they are in the ground, and I normally put a stake to try and grow them up. But if you look at my apple tree on my allotment, it's fallen over, and then every year I pull it back up, and then it just slowly goes back over. So we keep pulling it back up, and it will slowly fall over again. I moved last year. I moved an apple tree that I had down in the bottom corner. This was my cider apple tree. I moved it, and then of course all those strong winds and wet weather came along, and that apple tree I think is dead. So that's going to have to come out soon, anyway. A lot of pears are usually on quince rootstock. Yes, that's right. I think pears are called a quince rootstock, aren't they? It's as I said, it's all kind of complicated. It would be good to know, or good to keep it all standard. Well, I guess the standard thing is to think very dwarfing, dwarfing, semi-dwarfing, and full size. I guess would be the way to define it. But yeah, to know what the rootstocks and all the M numbers and other things like that, it's a bit complicated, isn't it? Really. Why I sometimes think that gardeners make things too complicated, and rootstocks is one of those examples. Yeah, so when it comes to pruning, as I said, I remove the 3Ds first. Dead, anything that looks dead, because they're not needed. They're not doing anything. They're just there. Diseased, that's obviously if it's diseased, we just remove it. Uh, Damaged is always a good one. If they've snapped off, you want to try and get that a bit cleaner cut. And then Also, crossing branches. When you get branches that are crossing, they might rub together and cause damage as well. That's always worth cutting back as well. Ian says, I'm just listening to the podcast as I feed my veg plants with seaweed feed. The runner beans are looking yellow on the foliage. It gets them going again. Yeah, that's probably because it's promoting the root growth. I'm trying to remember the thing that is in seaweed feed. Over on Instagram, Skinny Jean Garner has joined. Hope you're well, my friend. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the key component of seaweed feed. I know it's good for encouraging good root growth. Jenny says, I plant a tree with a homegrown mycelium fungi. If anything, I will add a little natural grower feed, but I do chop and drop around the ones, dock, comfreys, netrals, etc., etc. Yeah, mycelium fungi has got to be added to pretty much everything these days, I think. It's such a good added, it's not even an additive, is it? It just creates a network that allows all these plants to communicate with each other, as I understand it. But yeah. I'm just waiting to see if anybody is going to add anything else onto the pruning or got any questions to add to that as well. Now, what if it throw it up in the comments while I'm on this subject? Actually, what I want to say, citrus. Went to the citrus centre last week, as you know, had a great time looking at growing more citrus this year. But what I learned last week after growing it is that we can grow citrus in this country. We can grow decent lemons, decent oranges. We can grow it in this country. It just needs to be kept above -5 in order to try and keep it alive. Nigel's Digwell, sorry, says 4 Ds: dead, damaged, diseased, divergent. Explain divergent to me. Because my mind's going on that one. Nigel says winter pruning gives vigorous growth. Summer pruning is best to shape it. I agree. Yeah, summer pruning is best to shape it. But most, yeah, I normally find winter is enough, but I do a little bit during the summer. But mostly my stone fruit trees are pruned during the summer. Fruit tree pruning makes fantastic pea sticks. Nothing gets wasted. Divergent means crossing. Thank you. Sorry, my mind's a little out of wax today. Graham says, I have to prune in summer to keep the apples growing along rather than upwards. Well, that comes back to keeping the shape, as Nigel said. I generally find that they don't need much in the summer, on my plot anyway, once I get the winter pruning just done right. But hey, it's coming to that time of year, June, when a lot of our fruit trees, excuse me, that's a bit rude, when a lot of our fruit trees will go through what's known as the June drop. And for those that don't know what the June drop is, you will go down to your tree and you'll just suddenly find a load of little fruitlets around the base of a tree. That's the tree just shedding a load of fruits that it doesn't need. It may have too many together, too close together. So it sheds a load and concentrates its energies into what's left. And what you usually find towards the end of June, July, many gardeners will actually come along and prune some of those or remove some of those fruit lits out even more to give them more space. That way, although you get less fruit, you actually get bigger and better fruit. And it's one of those that I always find very hard to describe how much you remove when you do that. The only thing I'm going to call upon to try and describe is what Bob Flowerdew said on Gardener's Question Time once, is that you remove enough that you cry, you go away, have a cup of tea, and then you do some more. I don't know how to word it any better. It does very much feel like that. But what it does do is give you bigger and better fruit. So it is important Digwell says many people grow banana trees, not sure if they fruit or not. You have to be very, very lucky to get them to fruit. So I have grown banana trees, but I've never got them to fruit. I've got a stately home near me that I have seen banana fruits actually growing. I think they're technically a herb, though, aren't they? Bananas or something I've read. But yeah, I've seen bananas actually growing on them, but that might have been an exceptional year, a hot year. One thing I would say, though, it may seem balmy because we often associate bananas with the Caribbean or the more warmer climates. But the Cavendish banana, which is a variety of banana that pretty much all of us eat, was actually created in the UK. I can't remember the name of the hall where it was created, but obviously somebody got really into probably back in the 1900s or something, really into bananas. He was breeding these bananas to be super efficient, and they were created in the UK. They were bred in the UK. Nigel says, a guy on my site has a huge banana plant in his polytunnel. Whilst away on extended holidays, we played a prank. The day after he returned, we hung a few banana plants on the plant. Excellent. Excellent. But as I said, it is possible that they could grow. They could fruit in the UK. I think the person who created them, I want to say Cavendish Hall is the name of the place, but I could be wrong on that. The person who created them had them in like a huge greenhouse in order to have that possible. Jenny says, does anyone have any nut trees? I've got hazelnuts, hazel sticks and hazelnuts, of course. Apart from that, I can't think of any other nuts that I grow. Tiger nuts I've grown in the past and peanuts as well. Digwell says they cultivated them in the greenhouse of Chatsworth House. There we go. I knew it was something along those lines. The Cavendish banana. It's fascinating. I always think it is so fascinating when you start learning about the history of these plants. Who would have associated the banana that has been grown all over the world as being started off, being cultivated in the UK? Nigel says, cob or filbert nuts, anyone? Absolutely fantastic, delicious. And Digwell says, I did that with spaghetti. Let's have a quick check over on Instagram. Nothing going on over there. Right. We have been lucky enough, it seems like a good point, to have been sent a video. It's quite a long one, but I think it'll be okay. This comes from Digwell, and he sent us a video of his allotment tour. Well, before I go to that, Chili Phil says, we have an hazel tree as well. Never get the nuts, though, before the rats and squirrels get them. Also get loads of new ones popping up every year. Fantastic. Right, let's go to Digwell's plot tour.
Yes, I'm conscious of the fact that I haven't done a plot tour for quite a while. So let's have a quick look round. Try and keep it as short as possible. Straw bales, the first 8. What we got in there? Broad beans, a couple of different calibres and broccoli in there, and some Cape gooseberries, orange balm at the end, and loads of trailing plants all around the side of the bales there. On the ones going across the way, we got sweet potato and some direct sown radish there, with some beans at the far end, some dwarf beans. More trailing plants along the side up here, and various swedes and beets. Kestrel potatoes in there. A couple of different types of leek. Oh, crikey, just tripped over. A couple of different types of leek in there. And these onions, these are the giant onions, mammoth onions, they're doing very well, bulbing up nicely. A couple of shallots at the end. Pretty little flowers, loads of red onions in there. Potatoes in buckets everywhere around the outside. 2 different types of pea in here, one type each side. I can't remember the names. I'll stick them on the screen when I get home. I did print off a crib sheet and I forgot to bring it. These silvery things, anti-pigeon methods, anti-pigeon deterrents, as is Ollie the owl, fluttering around nicely in the breeze there. Up amongst the peas, I've interplanted with various brassicas. A couple more Cape gooseberries there. The tomatoes this side are all cherry and salady type tomatoes, interplanted with loads of different types of marigold. Dumped off a couple of old grow bags there yesterday, not sure what to put in there yet. I've got quite a few things to go in yet, mind. Sweet corn, garlics, things like that. Broad beans, I've come out to check these actually because the ones at home are riddled with black fly. Yeah, got a bit there. So I've got some plant invigorator in the car, so I'll give them a squirting. This is the Akucha trial for the Heritage Seed Library, and what I'm doing with this, I'm trying to trail it spiral wise around these canes because it apparently is very, very prolific. Also called the Bolivian cucumber. Here's the other bales. Again, we've got trailers at the side. These are trailing tomatoes. These are all garden pearl along the outside. If I get past my shadow, God, it's awkward there. What we got in here? Aubergine, basket of fire, another aubergine, Hestia dwarf runner beans, another basket of fire, cucumbers, and some bioassay broad beans in there. They were just a test that the straw bales are okay, and they are. Another climbing frame, loads of different types of climbing bean all over. I'll stick some names on the screen so I can't remember them all. A couple of cucumbers each end. I've got loads to go in there yet. I got melons, cucumber melons, tromboncino. Let's go down towards the pond. Ooh, I haven't seen this. You haven't seen this yet. Newly acquired seat. My mate's given his plot up and he said, "You can have my bench if you want." Thank you very much, John. I'm thinking about putting something in the middle of here as well, like I did last year, but it's hard to get to or hard to harvest. We'll see. Red currants all along here, up top of the pond. Top of the pond there. Yeah, it's doing all right. There's a loganberry down there. Apple L-Star there, and they're fruited up nicely. Should get a few off that this year. There's me pink blossom rhubarb. Sorry if it's a bit jittery, guys, but I'm conscious of the wind here. Raspberries, I'm getting some raspberries, first time ever. This grass has gone mad. But this pear tree, let's get down the bottom of the place. This pear tree has never fruited. It's flowers, but never fruited. This is a wild area here. I'm calling it my my wildlife footpath, if you know what I mean. I've broadcast sown loads of flowers here, but the grass is just too rampant. Right, black currants up there, loads and loads of black currants on them. Just got to get to them before the birds. Not really got many birds that eat black currants around here. I suppose pigeons might, but with all these glittery tapes around, they probably won't bother. Right, spare bed here, dumping ground at the moment. Squashes, marrows and that sort of thing going in there. Nasturtiums at the far end. Runner bean frame, two types in there, a normal elite and something else. Here's my little compost tea bin over there. You fill it with dock leaves and nettle leaves and things like that, and makes a tea of the concentrated liquid. Birdie's bed. Just harvested the spinach out of this end and put some dwarf beans in there. Onions. Now this was intersown with loads of carrots, and not a single carrot seed has come up in between. And that's another reason I came up today actually. Yeah, not a single one, so I'm going to have to re-sow them. Next bed up, loads of brassicas in there. And they're interplanted with onions as well. Lots of interplanting, companion plantings this year. Ooh. Couple of pyramid climbing towers here. I've got jasmine on this one with some cucumber melons around the bottom. And a clematis on this one with some cucumber melons around the bottom. Another two types of pea in here. Let's push these back in while I'm here, if they'll go. There we are. Yeah. Six lots of blueberries around the outside. What have we got here? Sorry guys, I'm a bit jittery. Shallot Zabrun. These are all beefsteak tomatoes down here. 16 varieties, different varieties. More brassicas, sweet peas. They're taking off now. They've taken ages to take off. Potatoes around the outside, around the outside, around the outside. Elephant garlic there, bit of rust. All the other garlic I've lifted. This bed here, just here, was full of garlic yesterday. So much rust on it, I've got fed up with it, lifted it. I put in a load of brassicas in. There's all sorts in here. There's cabbage. Yes, cabbage, cauliflower, and calabrese. Nasturtiums and cucumbers in that little climbing frame there. Loads of climbers in that one there, and these are Maybach peas in there. So that's about it, guys. Conscious of the fact that it's quite windy, so you might not be able to hear a word I'm saying. Way. Let's have a quick overview. Hang on. And there we are, just looking down the plot. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I better get on and do something at home now. Take care, guys.
Indeed, thank you very much for that, Digwell, Steve. My mind went blank there. I wasn't paying attention. Lovely video. Lovely video. Good to see your allotment is looking absolutely full, I've got to say. We need more videos like that. If anybody ever does want to send me a video of that sort of thing, please feel free. Even better if it has something to do with the subject that we're going to be talking about that week. So let's just quickly. Digwell says there is a risk of extinction of variety because Cavendish bananas are parthenocarpic. They don't have seeds or reproduce only through cloning. Yeah, there was a disease going on through those bananas, and they were trying to find alternative breeds. That's how I discovered they were originally from the UK. Jenny says, I had a pawpaw tree. Unfortunately, it didn't survive the move. I hope to replace it one day. It was grown in a pot outside in the summer. Protection needed for the winter. Excellent pawpaw. There's got to be some unusual fruit trees that we don't really grow so much in this country. And pawpaw is probably one of those. Ian says, one of my clients has a walnut tree. Walnut trees are usually really big, aren't they? They are so creamy, not dried like the ones in shops. Yeah, but they are big trees usually, aren't they? Very big trees. Graham says, I reckon leeks would fit in that gap. Digwell. Excellent. Let's just have a quick check over on Instagram. I'm going on there. Jenny says, looks great, Steve. Gutted I never got the chance to get bale growing this year. Definitely next year. I love acucha spelling. Pretty plant and tasty fruit. I hope you take a task for 5 minutes on the plot, on the bench. Seed table. Scott says, looking fantastic, Steve. Lovely plot. Have you just watched the latest videos? And Graham says, yes, talking about the leeks. A flask or a cold cider is what he needs done on that plot. I agree. I totally agree. Excellent. Yeah, we definitely do need more of those videos. I think it is always good to see what other people are doing on their allotments anyway. I mean, I was going to be filming a plot tour video this weekend, but after losing some beds, it kind of took a back seat. I won't get into it. I won't get into it again because I'm going to save the rent for the podcast tomorrow. But I know, definitely not happy. Pests, fruit trees and pests. What pests does anybody get on their fruit trees? I know codling moth has been mentioned. And how do you tackle it is my next question. This is something that I'm going to rely solely on what you guys do. As you know, I get very, very little pests, diseases, so I tend to rely on what you guys tell me for some sort of education, for some inspiration on problems that we might get with our fruit trees and things like that. The only one that I used to get, but I tackled with, I have now tackled, was the peach leaf curl that used to affect my peach leaves on my peach trees. But since my itching nose again, but since moving those peaches into the greenhouse over winter, or my peach tree into the greenhouse over winter, I don't get that problem. Don't get a problem at all. Now, if you don't know what peach leaf curl is, what happens, as I said, it's a fungal disease that affects the leaves, and it's usually spread by rain landing on the leaves. And what happens is the leaves, they turn pink, they blister, they curl up. At first you think they look quite pretty, and then you realize, all the trees are dying because of it. So yeah, peach leaf curl has been my biggest problem, but I got over that very simply. Moved the tree undercover throughout the winter months. Graham says aphids are my egret russet, but the ladybirds have been on top this year. You know, it's interesting. I was saying about the influx of slugs and snails. But I've noticed we've had a lot more birds in our garden this year as well, and they're eating the slugs and snails. So all good in that front. I still would like less slugs and snails, but the birds are doing the job for me. Ian says Sussex Prairie Gardens, I've yet to go there, has a banana tree with bananas on the tree. Most walnut trees are big, but this one is in a big round raised stone bed. It's 20 foot. Yeah, pretty big, pretty big. Nigel says, had silver leaf on plum trees for years. In the end, I dug it out. It's annoying, isn't it, when these things come along? But they are a sort of a natural thing that we have to deal with. Jenny says, I don't touch pests. I've had the odd grub in the apple, but never had a problem. Touch a wood as I type. Birds do the hard work for me. Again, I agree with that. But I don't think they solve everything. I'm trying to think of any other examples that I've suffered with pests or diseases and what I've done about it. But apart from that, I've not really had any problems. So, yeah. Jenny also says, I'm not sure the allotment will allow a walnut tree. Then they are big trees. This is one of the advantages we have with our community orchard just down the road. We can go there. They've got a walnut tree there. They've got lots of apple trees, pear trees, cherry trees, everything that you can imagine, fig trees. Yeah, lovely, lovely stuff going on there. At this point, I just want to remind everybody, please do give us a like, please do give us a follow, please do give us a subscribe, and please do give us a notification. Click the bell so you know when we go live. As you can probably tell, I felt a little tired last night. I didn't sleep very well last night for reasons I said. Jenny says, just remembered, I want to get a fig tree, and the variety is, or she's asking brown turkey. Brown turkey is a very good fig tree for the UK climate. So yeah, that's a good one to get if you are interested in fig trees. And if anybody else, actually, that's a good question to come up with. Any particular varieties that you highly recommend of any fruit tree? But I can't think of any particular variety that jumps out at me. But I always think it's when it comes to varieties of fruit trees, how often do you really buy, say, an apple tree or a cherry tree? Chances are you're only going to buy one every 10 years. So you don't really get the chance to try different varieties very easily. But it'll be interesting to see if there's any particular varieties you recommend. I've had a few codling moth attacks on my apple trees, but I check them and pull the cobweb like balls off and squash the grubs. Sorry. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. As I said, I didn't sleep well last night. Yeah, codling moth. As somebody who mentioned codling moth earlier, but he tackled that. I can't remember what he said he done. Black walnut produces juglone, a toxic substance designed to selectively weaken and or outright kill any other plants nearby. That's a risk with that. Yes, I know. It's a bit like coffee and caffeine, isn't it? Anna Jones says, there is a lot of brown rot in my neighbourhood on apples. I always look around for diseased fruit in autumn and bin it to stop the disease spreading. Excellent stuff, excellent stuff. Nigel says, apple, Egremont, russet, pear, conference. I have to say, my pear is a conference. It's a very good apple, very good pear tree. I don't really like pears that much, but that one, I've got to say, is nice. Ian says, never prune a fig tree in the sun as the sap will burn your skin. Trust me, it happened to me. Big wells on my arms. Yeah, that's good advice there. Good advice. Graham says, I would highly recommend a Spartan for an apple tree. Lovely flavour. Harvest September. into October. Excellent, excellent. My favourite apple tree that I did have was Kingston Black, which is probably a variety most people have never heard of. But it was for making cider. It's a specific cider apple. And I tell you what, it makes the most delicious cider I ever drunk. It was absolutely unbelievable. Didn't actually produce that much. It wasn't a very high or very prolific producer of fruit, but it was delicious when it did make cider. I love my Braben apple tree, says Jenny. So delicious. Fantastic, fantastic. I've got to say, when it comes to cherries, I've got a Morello cherry tree on my allotment, and that is really does produce a lot of cherries, and they're delicious as well. They're the type of cherries they're tart, they're sour cherry, so they're not the sweet type, but they are delicious nonetheless. I'm thinking I'm going to have to get another cherry tree to be more for sweet cherries at some point. I'm trying to think where I might have them though. Well, I might fit one more in. I'm sure I can find somewhere. But the Morello, I think the Morello cherries are usually used in glacé cherries, if I'm not mistaken. But they're definitely used in cooking because they are a bit more bitter and what have you. So highly recommended. Also, they are self-fertile as well, so you don't need a second cherry tree to pollinate them, something we mentioned earlier. Something else I want to mention as well, we were talking about apple trees, pear trees, and pruning. And what I'm looking for, as I said, I want to get some apple trees or trees to make the fence, but I also want to do more step over apple trees, which is just a single pair of branches going out like that, but low to the ground that you step over them. That's something I really want to do more of and learn those sort of things. Digwell says fig sap causes phytodermatitis or something like parsnips, etc. Yeah, there you go. It's nasty. It is nasty when you get it. Graham says, I need to get a cooking apple variety for apple crumbles in the winter. Absolutely. Bramley is usually the go-to, isn't it? They're good, but I think they're not the best producing. Scott says there's an amazing orchard in Cambridge called Cam Valley Orchard. They have thousands of varieties of apple, plums, and pears this year. I want to try as many as I can, then choose some I want to grow. Is that a community orchard? Can you go along and help yourself, or is it something you have to pay for? Stuart says, I do have hazel at the bottom of my garden, which is not really mine, but the nuts are good to eat, aren't they? Just hello, Roxy. Roxy's just came in. Don't you just love fresh hazelnuts? They are absolutely delicious. If you can beat the squirrels to them, that is. What else have we got? Scott, that says amazing. That sounds amazing, says Jenny. Right, shall we quickly move on to the challenge? Now, this week's challenge, I've not made a video for. Nigel, are you ready? The challenge was to go and watch Nigel's video on onions, growing onions, and he's going to quiz me on it this week. I thought that was a great idea. I've been watching his videos a few times. I'm not saying I'm going to remember everything, but I think it is time that we tackled that challenge. So, Nigel, if you want to get your first question up, and we'll see how well we get on with it. Ian says, Richard, give me a call and I will get you to my fruit tree nursery. Thank you. Yeah, I was speaking to you about that the other day, wasn't I? I've got to try and get there. I was looking at their prices as well. They're very reasonably priced. I forget which one it is called. Scott says you had to pay for this nursery that he goes to, but they are very cheap. They also sell apple juice, single variety juice, and they are incredible. Fantastic, fantastic. So, yeah, you did say orchard, weren't you? Yeah. Again, it's about finding the right variety for you as well, because something I've noticed over the years, especially with apple trees, is that some of the varieties are best for the areas that they are grown in. and there's some apple trees that grow best in certain areas of the country, but don't do so well in other areas. That's very difficult to work out what is the best for that. But hey, these are all the things that we will find we tackle with. Nothing going on over on Instagram. Very quiet on Instagram tonight, but we'll see what happens. So Nigel's first question on his challenge: what varieties of onions do I recommend growing from seed? Now, as I recall, you said you grow all yours from seed because you find it's better choice. But also, if you want to grow the large exhibition onions, they're best grown from seed. And the ones I'm trying to think, Kelsey and I want to say Johnson's Mammoth. Is that correct? That's my two guesses. That's my two thoughts. Kelsey and Johnson's Mammoth. I've got a feeling I've got that one wrong though. Digwell says Granny Smiths are good for cooking apple pies, etc. But a good tip is to add an uncooked sliced sweet apple too. My pies have won a few competitions. Secret is out. Excellent. Marvin Show always have stand that will identify your apples for you, which is helpful. There's apple days as well up and down the country that help identify them as well. What is the top dressing that I give the bed prior to planting out that I copied from the Robinson's Giant Onion website? I want to say, I think you said you give it a good layer of well-watered horse manure, or was it cow manure? Well-watered manure. And I think you mentioned calcified seaweed as well. I got a bad feeling about this. I got a bad feeling about this because my mind goes blank as soon as I started this. I probably watched that video about 10 times this week, and I thought I would remember a lot more. There we go. I liked the idea of this challenge. By the way, don't forget, I will need a challenge for next week, and we'll do the seed video in a minute. And what was I thinking? I'm thinking next week the topic might be security on the allotment. Nigel says Robinson's Mammoth. I knew it was Mammoth something. So got that one wrong. Kelsey, thumbs up. Excellent. I knew it was Kelsey, and I knew the other one was Mammoth something. I just couldn't remember what Mammoth. Roxy's came this side of me now. It's all very frightening, this, isn't it? It's very frightening. I think we could do this sort of, you quiz me on a video a bit more often, actually. I think I quite like it. Digra says, I'm going to go at identifying apple varieties. Red one, green one, yellow one, 6 for £1 in Tesco's. Yeah, I am good at, oh, sorry, I am good at identifying apple varieties. Red one, green one, yellow one, 6 for £1 in Tesco's. Excellent. Small onions. I grow Vento and Toughball. Is that the question? Or have I missed something there? Oh, the rest of the onions you recommend, of course, with you. Vento and Toughball. Excellent. I like this challenge, Nigel. I've got to say. What's going on? Anything going on over on Instagram quickly? Nope, nothing going on there. Digwell says, never done well with Vento. I've got to admit, I think I said this last week, I've always had a hard time getting my onions to grow when I grow them from seed. I can germinate them, they just don't grow that big or that impressive. I think I may have figured out where I'm going wrong though, but hopefully next year will be the year that we get some good onions. We're going to give it a try. We're going to give it a try several years. I'll keep trying anyway. If they turn out better than onion sets, then we'll try it. We can start sowing in August, isn't it? There's some onions seeds we can sow in August to go in over winter. By the way, Nigel, how many questions are you going to ask me, just so I got a rough idea on how we can go? What else was I going to say? Coming back to the fruit trees, anybody got anything else they want to add to the fruit trees conversation? Digwell says, no sets at all for me this year, apart from my own exhibition shallots. Sorry, I got confused. No sets for me this year. I've grown some from sets because I have much more success, but we'll try it. Nigel says, look above. The last question I can see you ask was this one. What is the top dressing that you give to the bed prior to planting out that I copied from the Robinson's Giant Onion website? I said manure, well-rotted manure that you lay down over winter. And I just realised you said prior to planting out. Was it bloodfish and bone or calcified seaweed? Yeah, I think I answered that. I don't know what happened there. In this is a question that I've missed that hasn't came up on my screen. Graham says he only grown shallots this year. Zabroon prefer the flavour of the two onions. I've got to admit, I in some ways prefer shallots to onions. They store better. They've got a much milder flavour, but they're also really good at storage. It just don't quite get enough, I don't find. But I haven't done any shallots this year again. We'll try again next year. Nigel says, I always pick and try apples. Oh, here we go. I always pick and try apple growing wild in the hope of finding a new tasty variety and getting to name it. Could happen. Digwell got this one correct. I guess that's superphosphate. And Nigel says superphosphate is the top dressing. That I'm doing badly on this. I'm doing very badly on this. But I didn't see that question. Oh no, top dressing. Yes. Is there another question coming up, Nigel? I know this is a bit quick because there's a 30-second delay from me going out to what you doing. How do I dry my large onions? Don't you tie them up or hang them up in your greenhouse? In a string in your greenhouse running across, don't you hang them up there? I only watched this video like about half hour before we went live as well, just to refresh my mind, and I've forgotten everything. I want to say you hang them up in the greenhouse to dry them, but I could be wrong on that as well. This is going to be a mission fail. This is going to be a mission failure this week. But hey, nobody's perfect. Nobody is perfect. Has anybody else taken part in this and making some guessings as well, and to see what they got on with? I'm waiting for the answer, which is probably going to be Ian says, my sweet potatoes, I tried growing slips from both rotted, so I managed to buy a plant. It's in a big tub in the greenhouse. Excellent stuff. Yeah, sweet potatoes I find do actually grow best in a big tub. I've grown them in the ground. They need lots of moisture, but lots of sun as well, and lots of warmth. So I did find in a tub they do better. Digwell says, lay them flat in the sun as his answer to Nigel's question that he set me. How does he dry his large onions? And I said, hang them up in a greenhouse. I'm waiting to see the answer as well. Let's keep the energy growing. By the way, I'm going to ask a question to everyone. And coming back to my finding my wood on somebody else's plot for my beds, what would you do? Would have you taken the wood back? The reason I say, Nigel says, look above. I'm not seeing anything above. I've only got dig rolls, lay them flat in the sun. Ian's, and then how do I dry? That's all I've got above, I'm afraid. So I can't see anything here. Yeah, if you found your wood beds on somebody else's plot, would you go along and take them? What I'm saying is, it's planks of wood. How do you identify them as being your own planks of wood? I have no idea how that would work. That's why I'm going to be labeling all my wood up or painting onto it with a stencil what my number, so that if anybody does take it, they're gonna have to really sand it down to remove it. Thread the onions through upturned bread trays to drain any moisture from the neck. Well, I got that wrong as well then. Another one I got wrong. Excellent. Digwell says sweet potatoes prefer to be grown indoors for the warmth, but there are some low temp varieties. Yeah, I find that they need a lot of moisture. I found as well, and ideally you want to grow instead of letting the foliage scrabble around, you want to grow the foliage up so it goes vertically. There we go. Kate says I would have taken it back and started plotting my revenge. I'm plotting my revenge. Yeah. So you must go. Stuart's got to go. Take care, buddy. Nice to see you. Nigel says after the guy had woken up, I would tell him I am taking him back. Haven't seen the guy. I know he'd been there in the afternoon on his plot anyway, because things have changed, but haven't seen him to have words with him. It's one of those, I know it's my wood, and I've got video evidence that it was my wood from past videos, thankfully. But there's no identifier mark, so would it stand up in a court of law? Unlikely. Chilling Phil, if I was sure it was mine, I would take it back. But like you say, with wood, it's difficult to be sure it is yours. Yeah, it is no identifying marks. I would have got the wood back to and reported it to the management of the site, which is what I've done. Wood, count the number of beds stolen, multiply by 4, count the number of pieces on his plot, taken back. There's exactly, yeah, there was exactly the amount that I was missing. The same wood of the same age with the same mixture of screws that I used to screw them together, because he literally just pulled the wood off from it, whoever took it. Nigel says, is there any chance he could have assumed your plot was abandoned? So that is something I did wonder. But when I've spoke to my neighbours about it, they've all sort of said, well, you can tell your plot's being worked. There's onions in the bed. There was garlic in the bed. The only thing is I hadn't cut the grass last week, so it might have been a bit overgrown for that, but nothing too bad. But it is possible he thought it was abandoned. But that doesn't explain why he opened a shed and looked at my tools, why he removed the, because I've discovered a plant feed maker, why he'd removed that as well. That doesn't explain all of that. So, yeah. Possible he thought it was abandoned, or he was just pushing his luck. May not have been the allotment holder as well, as the other thing I'm going to say. It may have been somebody just dumped it there. I don't believe that for a second, but it's possible. It's certainly possible. Any more questions, by the way, Nigel, on that quiz? If not, I'm going to go to the sew along, because there's it's coming to the getting close to the end. Seeing the tools would have indicated a working plot, in my honest opinion. My thoughts exactly as well. Also, plants growing. There may have been a few weeds, but nothing too bad. It's my neighbour to the top of me as well. Their weeds are up here. I think I've said about it before. Their weeds are really, really high, and that's caused me issues. But that is clearly, I wouldn't even say abandoned. The thing is, on our plot, on our allotment site, if we give up our allotment plot, we have to empty everything out of there. No sheds, no beds, no plants. Everything has to be removed. So an abandoned plot would have nothing on it, is the way I see it. Digwell says photos. There are photos. Where are they? Where are the photos? Oh, I'll do those while doing the video. Let's go to this sew along, and I'll quickly find those photos for you. Right, guys, this week it was a 2-4 in terms of the seed sew along. First one we have got is these butternut squash seeds. I think somebody said they're having trouble with them germinating and just want to see how I sow them. So I've got a tray here, multi-purpose compost, and I'm just pushing the seed in. Try and go about a knuckle deep, which is about 2 centimeters on my knuckles. There we go. Make sure I backfill it afterwards to fully cover it. You'll notice what I'm doing is just pushing the seed in on its side. That tends to work quite well with these. And it's going to be the same again with the vegetable seeds as well, the vegetable spaghetti seeds, which were the second one that were chosen as well. Now you may be thinking to yourself, Richard, why are you growing so many squash plants? I like squash plants. I think they are a great addition to any allotment, any garden, because they just produce so much food that actually stores quite well. In terms of seeds, very similar to the butternut squash seeds. But yeah, they produce very well for a long time. They grow some brilliant plants which trail all over the place, so you can have them climbing up vertical areas. They are quite hungry plants, so they do need plenty of compost in the beds before planting out. They also like quite a bit of sun and quite a bit of moisture, so location and everything else that goes with it. Also worth feeding once they start flowering with tomato feed in order to try and produce more flowers, and of course more flowers mean more plants. And again, I'm just sliding all these seeds in to let them grow. So there we go, that's this week's sow along sown. I'm making sure they're all going to be covered up well. Important thing, of course, at this stage, ensure they stay moist. These will stay outside. It's going to be warm enough outside for them, so that should be okay. Right, back to the studio, and don't forget to share any tips that you have on how you go about growing squash plants. There we go, that was my squash plant seeds sown. That's butternut squash and spaghetti squash. I gotta admit, that was not the best explanation at all of how we grow these plants. My head's a mess. My head has been a mess with this break-in, and I haven't had to. I like to make a crib sheet of all these notes and stuff, and I didn't get that all written down. But yeah, it wasn't the best. But if anybody's got any tips on what's going on there, please do let us know. What we got? Turbo Stream says absolutely no excuse, even if a plot was abandoned, to go on and take stuff. I agree. I do agree. Without permission, it's theft. Whether you like it or not, whether you think it's abandoned or not, it's theft. Digwell says, I had my car broken into last week. Sorry to hear that, mate. The thief felt sorry for me. He left a £5 on the driver's seat. I thought you had quite a nice car, though. Nigel says, I'm done for the questions. Thank you. I think, you know what, it's been a great idea. We will have to do this again as a slightly different challenge, but we'll change it up slightly to make it a bit more easier to flow. Turbo Stream says, my butternut squash still haven't germinated after a month. That's weird. That is weird. Mine have germinated, so Perhaps you need to resow them. And I wonder, were they in your porch again? Nicholas says, sorry, with these brighter evenings, I lose track of the set time, so I say hello. Welcome along, Nicola. Lovely to see you. Now, I was reminded about the photos. These were in photos all from our group, I believe. I meant to check, actually. Anyway, let me just see what we've got going on. So, Chili Kate has shared with her first photo of the month, and these are them looking fantastic. Jenny has spotted this interesting idea. Apparently, it was on Gardener's World. So I've never seen this. I've never heard of this. It's something to do with a seed snail technique. You wrap it up and fill it up with seeds or something like that. Perhaps somebody could explain it to me. I don't understand it. Never heard of it, but I'll be intrigued to know. Nathan's onions are looking great, which tallies up with what we were talking about this week. Nathan's onions are looking great. Arthur's turnips are also looking great. I'm not a lover of turnips, but to see these, they're looking fantastic. Amanda says it has been a lovely day to be on the allotment, which you can definitely see when you look at this, and that her little pup there looks like it's having a wonderful time as well. Andy says it's been a hot one. I've got to say it has been a hot one. I think I'm actually burnt on my face, so I'm with you. It has been a hot one. Scott's pea are in flower, but he can't remember what is what. May not be a problem with peas, except they might be sugar snap or main crop or, all the different types of peas that they might be. Don't know how you're going to find them out. Beddoes, his tomatoes are just showing through. I was expecting a bit of people saying, well, it's well too late for that, surely. Beddoes is in Spain, so I think he'll be okay there. They'll probably grow quite quickly. If you do have any more photos, then please do share them with us. You can email me, richard@veggroundpodcast.co.uk. Post them in our Facebook group or send to me via social media. Right, what have we got going on? Digwell says, I sowed my second lot of butternut squash BNS in the same compost. The old seeds were still there, so I opened them up. No kernels inside, just two halves of a seed case. All 6 seeds. That's annoying. Turbo Stream seeds were in a house in a cool room, so no danger of getting too hot. Okay. Digwell says, make a Swiss roll of compost on a membrane, sow seeds, water, roll it up. Used to be popular 50 years ago. Never heard of it. So this is a new one to me. And Turbo Stream says possibly a bad batch of seeds. I hope not, because that's what I've sown. So I hope not. Fingers crossed. I think sometimes butternut squash can be a little bit pedantic. Nigel says, on our site, only the secretary has authority to enter a plot unattended without the plot holder's permission or invitation. I kind of wish we had that. The thing is, our plots don't have any, we're not allowed fences around them, or you have to get permission to have fences around them. But I still think nobody should be entering on them and taking stuff without permission either, at all. My tomatoes have 3 flower trusses on. My tomatoes are in flower as well. It's fantastic. I'm hoping we're soon going to get some tomatoes too. Be good to get tomatoes. I'm looking forward to those, to say the least. Right, so we've got about 5 minutes to go for the show. I just need a mission that I can do for this next week. Next week, I want to talk about allotment security. This is a subject that rears its ugly head every now and then, and what we've been discussing a bit tonight about it and things going on. But I'll be interested to see what everybody else's thoughts on allotment security is. I'm going to be sowing beetroot. Beetroot being the seed of the month in collaboration with Premier Seeds Direct. Discount code VegPod10 if that is of interest to you. I should put that up, shouldn't I? VegPod10. There we go with Premier Seeds. If you are looking to save some money on some seeds. All I need is a mission. all I need is a challenge. Digwell says, I stand by my thoughts that only so many seed suppliers grow veg to save the seed, then sell them all to the retailers. One bad batch equals a crap seeds to Saturn's T&M, Dobbies, etc., etc. Could be. I have no idea. It's. I know there's not as many seed suppliers as what people seem or is made out, and they all come from one place. I mean, you imagine having to grow plants purposely for seed. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, you imagine having to grow plants for seed sowing, for saving seeds. It's a lot of plants you need. Terry Stream says, I nearly bought new seeds but didn't. Probably won't bother now. Still not got my mojo break back, so just keeping my plot tidy. I've got to say, my mojo since this stealing it was lacking, since this theft. But it's coming back. I think you guys, talking to you guys tonight, has brought it back to me. Still time. Only did mine 2 days ago. There we go. Peppers didn't do anything either, nor the courgettes or cucumber. Oh, you're not having a good chance. Not having a good luck, are you there? Not having good luck at all, are you, Turbo Stream? I'm not sure what's going on there. Graham says, mission, hit the fellow plot holder with a piece of 4x2 timber. Yeah, it's got to be a legal challenge. I've got to do it legally. Don't know if he's, don't know. As I said, I don't know if we definitely did, but he's on my radar. I mean, not every supplier has room to grow every veg for seed, but that they sell. I bet most come from Turkey. I think it's Croatia as well. They come from a lot as well. But yeah, you would need a lot of room to grow some seeds for seed sowing. Yeah, I'm just waiting on a challenge, really, a mission or something that I can do. What have we done in the past? Building scarecrows, building square foot gardens. Trying to think of something else I can throw a few ideas out for. Nicholas says, I have planted tomatoes. Mojo not great, but have been cutting back brambles around the fruit trees that have been neglected. Yeah, it takes time, doesn't it? It does take time, and brambles are just a nightmare. Unless you do the Clarkson method of getting goats, of course. Demonstrating mission makes some stocks for the thief. They are still in place in Berwick upon Tweed by the town hill. I like the idea. I do like the idea to make stocks, but I don't think that's going to quite wash with people involved. For example, T&M have 20,000 varieties, bloody huge area of land. Yeah. Ian says rebuild your raised beds. That's happening anyway, but that could be a mission. That could be a challenge, especially with what I'll be doing. What do you think of that challenge? What do you think of that mission? Let me know. Do you think rebuilding my raised beds is going to be a suitable challenge or mission? Recycle some recycling in the garden, plastic 2-litre bottles, etc. I only need one mission, one challenge. So just one thing. One thing is all I really need to do. Oh, Rebecca's got a good one. Mission, take a photo of something you are proud of. That is a good one, actually. I like that. I like that, Rebecca. I'm going to do that. I'm making an executive decision. A photo of something I'm proud of. I like that a lot. But remember, if you do have suggestions, do remember that we can come up, save them for next week as well. We do it next week. I'm going to do that. The mission, take a photo of something I'm proud of. Digwa says that may be banned on YouTube. What, taking photos of something I'm proud of? Yeah, okay. I think everyone should. Excellent. Right, we're getting into overtime, so I think it is only right that we get out of it. I'm sure people have got things to do as well. Digwell, I know he is after his chili. Chili Phil has just added, actually. How about everyone does that challenge and submits photos for you to share? Yes, do that. Do that. Everyone take part in this challenge and send them to me. Take a photo of something you're proud of, send them to me, and I'll show them next week. Good one, actually. That is a very good one. Thank you. Thank you. Right, guys, I am going to get out of here. You take care. We'll see you again next Sunday at 6, where hopefully I'll be in a happier mood. Thank you so much for tonight. You really have helped get me over my hump. But I look forward to doing it again next Sunday. Take care.